Bryan Ray, America's Rugby News. Major League Rugby 2023 preview. The one Canadian fans have been waiting for, the Toronto Arrows. Well, they finally returned to Canadian soil last year after spending the entire of 2021 on the road, posted in Atlanta. And remember, in 2020 as well, they had only played away games before the season was canceled, 5 games in. So they finally got back, and they still had to play their first home game in Victoria. So it took a while between drinks in Toronto. Now they are going to spend all of their 8 home games there this season, thankfully. So, and quite a few in the second half of the campaign, traditionally because of the weather, of course. Some changes last season. First full season for Pete Smith as head coach. They also had a couple, new assistant coaches. They had Rob Howley, of course. Everybody knows him from Wales and Lions fame, both as a player and a coach, and Francois Ratier, who coached both the senior national men's and women's teams for Canada, and Francisco Deforme, the former Chile tight head prop who'd been coaching in New Zealand. So they came in a strong supporting cast last year. Now, Howley wasn't around for the entire season in a full-time capacity, but thanks to the WRU, Welsh Rugby Union, not allowing Howley to join Warren Gatland with Wales, Howley is going to be with the Arrows all this season, and maybe he can take out some of his frustrations and help Toronto this year. So what we're going to do first is look at all the players from 2022 who have departed last season. You know, they finished 500, not really in that, playoff picture, although, there was some kind of hope in the third quarter of the season, but really, they were never really looked like they were going to get there. So a lot of changes, as we're going to see, lots of departures. So we'll start in the front row. Cole Keith, the stalwart who's been with them for, all of their MLR campaign, started as a tight head, then went to loose head, now going to New England, ironically Boston, closer to his home in New Brunswick than Toronto is. Following him down to Beantown, Andrew Quattrin, this outstanding fan favorite hooker, a Canadian international again, he is gone. And another one, Spencer Jones to Boston, plays 10, 12, 15, he is off. So certainly some losses there. Rob Brower only played, I think, 1 game last season, now retired, the old warhorse. Tremendous service to Ontario and Toronto Rugby. Thank you, sir. Sam Mace, really the academy captain, and didn't actually play any games last season. He's now gone to Leeds Tykes in England. Still Canadian eligible. Could see him back maybe later in the season. Who knows? And Marc-Antoine Ouellette really only played a couple games as well. He was a football convert, had didn't really make any kind of an impact last season. A couple surprises here. Paul Cellini, he started most of the Toronto's games in MLR, not re-signed. As far as I know, he's a free agent right now. Teams who need a second row, Paul Cellini is available. Chicago, maybe give him a call. Arrows, I'm not sure what's going on there. Kyle Bailey, another one. Played a lot of blindside flanker last season, but, former NOLA captain, this a Canadian international established, not re-signed. Another one, if you need a, experienced forward, there you go. Tommy De La Vega opting to go back to Argentina after 3 tremendous years with Toronto. Thank you for your service. Marcelo Wainwright never left the team down, just ran into, some injury problems the past couple of years. But remember, back in 2019, he was a regular starter with the side. Ronan Foley, a little bit of a shaky start, but then emerged as one of Toronto's better forwards last season, now signed with the Seattle Seawolves. Siaki Vikalane never really made much of an impact with Toronto, it has to be said. He's now signed for the American Raptors. And Ollie Knott, this flanker, only got a couple games in last season. He's now back in the BC Premier League. Hey, Seattle, if you need a flanker, and it looks like you kind of do, give Ollie a call. Scrum halves, they had so many injury problems last year. I'm just listing 5 of them here. They went through, I think, 8, 9. Sam Malcolm played 1 game after Chris Bell was injured. Malcolm went in and played the entire game at 9. So Andrew Ferguson, it looks like he's called it a day. Played 1 game last season and had a bad hamstring injury. I think he's now retired. Always thought he was hard done by the Canadian selectors. Chris Bell, I'm not sure why he's not back, but 25 years old, Canadian eligible. Other teams need a domestic scrum half. There's a guy. And Sam Reimer, this youngster, came in, played a handful of games as a replacement towards the end of the season. He's actually with the Pacific Pride now out in BC, so probably just a phone call away if they need him. Will Kelly never really got a run with the side. He's now gone to England to play with Chinnor, and I think it's National 1 over there. Giuseppe Dutoit, another international Canadian centre. I think he's finishing his studies at Trinity Western University out in BC. Weta Tufuga, this big New Zealander, played 12, played 13 last season, but just didn't quite maybe fit the style that the team was looking for, so he is not back this season. Denon Robinson-Bartlett looked awesome when he was on the field, but I think he only played 4 games. He just kept getting injured, couldn't stay on the pitch, so sadly he is not back. Brock Webster came and played 5 games, outstanding, and then he was yanked back to the Canada Sevens program. Please send him back. We want this guy. Gaston Mieres, the last of the Uruguayos. He's been brilliant for the Arrows. He's now gone home. He's playing with Peñarol in preparation for the World Cup. Connor McCann kind of came out of the wilderness, international wilderness, several years just away playing club rugby with Balmy Beach. Not back in the roster, not sure why this season. Did a pretty good job at fullback. Mitch Vorlak never let the team down last season. The winger fullback, another guy maybe just a phone call away if they need him. Matthew Hood, Australia Sevens player. I think he's now actually retired, but a lot of injuries last season. Didn't get to see a lot of them, unfortunately. Johnny Sheridan, he's been around, Ontario, Toronto Arrows, Ontario, and then, he's just been on the periphery of the squad, but he played an awful lot over the past few years. And again, another guy who, always delivered when asked. Probably another guy who's a phone call away. So there you go. Look at this. I mean, almost the entire back line is gone. A lot of forwards names missing there, so we've got a lot of filling in to do. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to look at the newcomers in 2023. Okay, new names for the Arrows this season. We'll start at loosehead prop. Conan O'Donnell, Ireland under-20 international. Spent some time with the Sunwolves and Super Rugby. Has been playing in the NPC in New Zealand. He is back. Lolani Faliva, this giant, hard crash ball runner, 6'5", 285. He's a monster. Went back to New Zealand, was playing in the NPC in the off-season, so excited to see how he goes this year. Another newcomer from Australia, but Canadian eligible, Connor Grindle. Now, he was playing second grade, just one level below the Shute Shield in Australia, so don't know a whole lot about him, but he is Canadian eligible, which is handy. Jack McRogers, of course, is back, Canadian international. Gene Simonton, filling big shoes to fill this year for Mr. Quatrin as a hooker coming in from Hawke's Bay. Now, he hasn't actually started any NPC games, so a little bit of a question mark signing. We'll see how he goes. Ramon Ayarza, another interesting signing. A Chilean international. Now, all of his test caps have come at loosehead prop. The past couple of years, he's been playing in France and kind of started to move over to hooker a bit more, but I rate him as a loose head, still in the mix for Chile's World Cup squad, so an interesting signing there as our third choice hooker. Isaac Salmon came in, did an excellent job at tight head last year. Tyler Rowland along with him, Canadian international returning. And Nick Hildebrand, he played with Houston a couple of years ago, but he is Canadian. Lost a bit of weight. He's down to 240, 245-ish. Can play tight head, can't play loose head, so a handy addition. They also drafted Denver Fat last season, but or this year rather, but well, we're in 2023 now, so the 2022 draft anyways, but he's going to finish out the season with the University of Victoria and then maybe join up with the Arrows towards the end. We'll see. Second row addition, Micaiah Torrance Reid coming in from Manawatu in New Zealand, where he was a starter, so we can expect him to be a very handy pickup there. Corey Thomas, Canadian international. He was playing with LA last year, can play lock, can play blindside flanker, number 8. Nice versatile addition, so we'll stick him at lock for now. They also have Hank Stevenson in the senior academy. I haven't listed him there, but I mean, he's 23 years old. At some point, he's got to get into a game, so he's maybe your fifth lock there. And David Skolin, also a Canada U20 guy, is in their academy, maybe your fourth hooker down there. Drafted in the first round out of UBC, their captain Owen Rutan also won his first test cap, can play either flanker spot, very hard worker, keen to see how he goes. Mason Flesh, injured early last season, missed most of the campaign, put on a little bit more weight on his 6'5" frame, great line-out jumper, Canadian international. Number 8, 2 new names, Mitch Eadie, excellent signing, almost straight out of the Premiership really, Scotland under 20 cap, but he's really English from the Bristol area, and that's where he spent the bulk of his Premiership career. Also spent some time with Northampton, if I recall correctly, so he should be an excellent, and still, he's not super over the hill. I think he's about 30, 31 now, so still some time left in him. He's been staying fresh with Hartpury in the championship recently. And Travis Larson from the Seattle Seawolves, Canada A select. He actually started for Seattle in that final against New York. Went in and did a pretty good job. Nice guy, can play across the back row. Lucas Rumble, he'll be the captain this year. Mike Shepard was the captain last year, but Rumble will be the skipper this year. James O'Neill, open side flanker, spent some time with Melrose in Scotland during the offseason. Adrian Wadden, I should remember, spent actually some time in Hong Kong, sharpening up in the offseason. He looked good towards the end of last year, so expect more from him this year. Looking over a scrum half, we got one new addition, Will Grant, coming in, New Zealander, but he's been playing starting in the Shoot Shield in Australia. He's also played in the NPC and Canadian eligible, so that's great. He should put some pressure on Ross Brodie for the starting role. Cole Brown returning, he only managed one game last year, and then he was injured, so he'll be the third choice. Sammy the Boot is back at number 10, but we've also got Shane O'Leary, the Canadian international, coming in. He's been playing over in Europe, most recently with Rouen Normandy in Pro D2, so there's a nice addition. He was injured I think around January, February of last year, pretty serious injury, but it looks like he's back and healthy, and he's been playing regularly in the preseason. Three new centers to talk about. Noel Reid won one cap for Ireland. He played at the highest levels in Ireland, England, France, very experienced. And another guy, he's not super old. I think he's about 31 now. Can play 10, can play 12, can play fullback. I think mostly we're going to see him as a playmaking inside center. Tautala Tasi, this is the newest addition to the team, born in New Zealand but grew up in Australia, played rugby league, and then he played Super Rugby with the Sunwolves in 2020 or 2019, one of those two seasons, and also a starter down in the Shoot Shield, powerful runner. Maybe he's that guy that we need, that the Arrows have needed to really get them on the front foot over the gain line, a really explosive attacker. And Nick Ben is a promising youngster, grew up in Australia, starter in the Shoot Shield, Canadian eligible, says he wants to play for Canada. We'll take him. Primarily an outside center, can also play on the wing. Keen to see how he goes. And Mitch Richardson returning. He also spent time at Melrose in Scotland with O'Neill during the off-season. A very reliable guy who can also play wing, but really more of a center. On the wing, speaking of, Cole Davis coming over for Rugby ATL, this big, strong Canadian international winger, and the return of Avery Oitomen. The Oitomen Empire is back. He was awesome in 2019, a real surprise package that year. Then he played with Canada U20. He was concussed playing with them, took some time off, went over to Wales, was at Cardiff Met, but didn't actually play for them. He's just had injury problems over the past 3 years, so it's been a while since he's actually played, but he's fit again. He certainly looks in good shape. Let's see if we can regain that old form, or maybe even take a step above it. Still a young guy. Colby Faust is back and looked good with the Canada U20s and also Guelph University. Can play center, fullback, but more on the wing with the Arrows. New huge winger coming in from Australia, starter in the Shoot Shield, Fabian Goodall, really a try-scoring dynamo down there, weighs about 250 pounds, played with Fiji in rugby league, so a real strong runner. He can also play a little bit in the midfield as well if needed. And Kieran Breen, really an interesting prospect. out of that Shawnigan Lake factory out in BC. He spent some time over in France in the Biarritz Academy, came back, joined the Canada Sevens team, and for some very strange reason released by them, but thank you, we'll take him. Now, he was normally a center, an outside center with Canada's age grade sides, but they have earmarked him as a fullback, so we're going to stick him there. Can probably also do a job on the wing, but a top prospect there, so nice to have him. If they'd send us Webster back as well, we'd love to have him. So there we go. That's our squad at the moment. A couple other guys on the senior academy squad. Jacob Ince, he's a Canada U20 center. Probably not going to see much time this year, but he's an option. And Brendan Black, this youngster, he's only 18 years old. He can play wing, fullback, even play a little bit of fly half. He looked good in that national university championship, but really one for the future. So, they do have coverage. Gabe Casey picked in the collegiate draft. Not really sure what's up with him. He played with Canada A in the off season. He can play 10. He can play in the midfield. He can play fullback. A real utility guy, but haven't really heard what's up with him. Maybe he joins. If he, is added to the squad, I think it looks a little bit more complete because there is maybe a gap here in the outside backs. I'd like to see one more loose forward added as well, or preferably actually a second row. Cellini. I don't know why he's not in the squad. But, not a bad squad, all things considered. So now let's look at our match day 23. Okay, Arrows matchday squad this season. The first thing, of course, we have to know, how many imports are they allowed? Their number this year is 8. Now, that's up from last year, but it's still the lowest in MLR. The only other team with 8 is Chicago, and there's only 3 teams below 10. So that is significant, and it is going to, give us a little selection dilemma here as we'll soon find out. So we'll start at loose head prop. Conan O'Donnell, certainly coming in, our Ireland under-20 guy. He's going to start at loose head prop. Gene Simonton, you're not going to bring him in if he's not a starter. So there you go. He's your number 2. Isaac Salmon returning, our number 3. Micaiah Torrance-Reid definitely coming into the second row. Number 5. Lucas Rumble is our captain this year. He's going to be most likely number 7, and Mitch Eady definitely nailed on at number 8. Now we've got a couple options here at second row and blindside flanker. Here's what I think is the most likely. The lineout was an issue for the Arrows last season. I think they want their best jumper in there, and their tallest guy, that's Adrian Wadden. So I think he is probably going to be your starter at 4, and then you play Corey Thomas here at number 6. So that gives you a nice spread, a little bit more options, throwing options in the lineup. Now, if you wanted something quicker, you could go with James O'Neill maybe here on the flank, and then you have a dual open side option and probably move Corey Thomas up to lock. But then, you're sacrificing a bit in the line out. Not sure how ideal that is. So I think this is probably going to be your starting pack for the most part. Now, you might say, well, where's our captain Shep? Well, I think Shepard this year, he's not going to be the captain. He'll be, I think, a vice captain, but I think his best role is really going to be here, coming off the bench, playing that angry lock role, coming in, angry Shep for 30 minutes, just wreaking havoc. I think that's the best spot for him. He's, getting to the later stages of his career. So I think this is going to be really what we're looking at. And we'll get to the rest of those reserve forwards in a second. The backs kind of pick themselves. Ross Brody, the incumbent scrum half. Will Grant coming in as pressure, but he's going to be our reserve anyways. Shane O'Leary, I think you're not going to bring him in from the Pro D2 and not start the guy. So I think he'll be 10. That's where he's been starting in the preseason, and that means Sammy Malcolm moving back to fullback. So that gives you kind of that dual playmaker option. Malcolm can swing around either side of the breakdown, but then you've got another playmaker here at 12. And Noel Reid, our Irishman, he's played a lot of 12, so that gives you nice hands in the middle of the field to move it to these outside backs where we're really going to get some attacking punch this year, and certainly none less than Tautala Tassi coming in really looks a powerful runner. I didn't have him penciled in there until about a week ago, until he got signing. I didn't have any prior knowledge that he was coming. I'd originally expected Nick Benn to be playing 13, but with the arrival of Tassi, you got to get the guy in there. So Nick Benn, I think, moves to the wing where he just played against Old Glory. So I think that's where he goes. And then in the other wing, you got your most experienced guy, that's Cole Davis. And then you've got Kobe Faust and Avery Oidman to kind of challenge for spots there, but I think Davis probably to start. So that gives you some attacking power out wide and some hands in the midfields. That kind of gives you an idea of the way that the Arrows are going to play this season. Their punch isn't going to come really from 12. It's going to be from that 13 and the wings out wide. And then in the mid, towards the middle of the field, you got like Mitch Eady really giving you a lot of power there. And it'd be nice to have Lolani Faliva there, but as we see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at our import limit, so we can't use anybody, any of those guys, Faliva or Ayarza or Fabian Goodall. I mean, we'd like to have this guy right here in the wing, but you can't fit him in because we're at our import limit. So Goodall's over here for the moment. The only way you can get him in is, obviously injuries are going to play their part this season, but if everybody's fit and ready, I mean, who do you drop from this lineup? I'm just not sure, to be honest. It's a tough one. So, I mean, I think Goodall is going to be kind of the odd man out anyways to start. So front row reserves are kind of obvious. Jack McRogers, hooker, Tyler Rowland, tight head prop. Now loose head, again, we'd love to have Faliva here to come in and smash things up, but I can't fit him in because we've got our 8 imports already. So Nick Hildebrand is the most experienced guy, so we'll bring him in as our loose head reserve. So I think that's kind of how it looks. In the back row, you've got options. You've got O'Neill, you've got Travis Larson who can play across the back row, and you've also got Owain Rutan. So nice options there. Mason Flesh, you could kind of stick as a second row, an extra second row cover guy, covers locker or blindside flanker. Of course, Thomas can also cover lock. So you got some options over here. Grant, as I said, and then we don't need another fly half because Malcolm is there and Reed is there. Mitch Richard, and you don't have another one anyways. More importantly, Mitch Richardson covers the midfield, can also play wing, but primarily a center. And then you got Kieran Breen, who's the guy who'd come in at fullback. Malcolm could move to 10, or just a straight swap. He can also play, anywhere in those outside backs. So that gives you good coverage here on the bench. Of course, you could go, because these guys are versatile, you could put Richardson or Breen there, do a 6-2, something like that. Wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of that this season as well. But again, I mean, you'd really love to be able to have Faliva in there or Goodall, either on the bench or as a starting option anyways. But it's just going to be tough with that 8 import limit. I mean, maybe they can make a trade and, get another spot, which would be ideal. But as it stands, you're kind of limited to this kind of a lineup, so I guess we could stick Faliva up here maybe as a rotation or to challenge as a starter, because it doesn't look like we're going to be able to fit him in on the bench unless there's some injuries. So overall, you're looking at the squad, on paper, it's not a bad lineup. I mean, as far as talent goes, they've certainly got talent. There's a lot of questions though to be answered. How are these guys going to fit together? So many guys coming in new this year. Some of these guys we just don't know a whole lot about. Symington, what kind of impact is he going to have? Nick Ben, what does he look like at this level? Tassie, obviously he's played Super Rugby. We're expecting the guy's going to be pretty good. Shane O'Leary coming back off that serious injury. There's just too many questions for me with this lineup to really put them at the top end of that Eastern Conference. So I'm putting them in that 4, 5, 6 kind of category with Rugby ATL and Old Glory DC. I just see New York, New England, and New Orleans as a little bit more stacked. They've got greater depth, I think, and a little bit more continuity as well. A little bit more, we know more about those teams, so I'm more comfortable putting them at the top. So I'm kind of looking at the Arrows as kind of a wild card in the East this year. Well, I'm not really sure. They could be, pretty exciting to be fair, but just too many questions for me to put them there. So there you go. Let me know what you think. MLR 2023, Toronto Arrows.